My master sergeant used to yell at us, "Stay alert." We all had to yell back, "Stay alive." So stay alert, stay alive, stay alert, stay alive. And I remember the next time I actually heard that phrase was I was in an Orthodox service and I heard a deacon yell, "Be attentive."
That's very cool. Be attentive right before the gospel, right? Right before you hear the words that will save your life if you listen to them. Yeah. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Path to the Priesthood, the podcast where we sit down with Greek Orthodox clergymen from around the country, and we ask them what it was that guided them to ordained ministry in Christ's church. I'll be your host, Christo Pappademos. We have a very special guest for you today, but before we begin our interview with him, let's hear a little bit about him. Father Jacob Saylor is the assistant priest at Assumption Greek Orthodox Church in Scottsdale, Arizona. Father Jacob has worked extensively in the field of Orthodox youth and young adult ministry since 2007 and was ordained to the priesthood in February 2018. Okay. Following his studies at Holy Cross Greek Orthodox School of Theology, he worked as a youth director for the Holy Trinity Greek Orthodox Church in San Francisco, California, from 2011 to 2015, during which time he also served as program director for the Metropolis of San Francisco summer camp. He and his wife, Presvytera Jordan, have been blessed by God with two sons, Jack and Benjamin. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Father Jacob.
You do that quite well. I was listening to a podcast. That's appropriate because that's what you're doing.
Thanks, man. We're trying over here.
You have that silky voice. You should have been like an announcer for a sports radio or something like that.
You know what? In another life, I like to think I could have been. I really do. Maybe there's still time one day. So Father Jacob, thank you for being here. You and I, we've worked together in a number of capacities, summer camp and things like that. You were in San Francisco. Now I'm in San Francisco. So for me, this is a real treat to finally sit down with you because I've known you for, I don't know, maybe 10 years or so. But I really don't know anything about your story, about how you became a priest in the church. So without any further ado, why don't you start from the beginning? Why don't you tell us about your journey?
I'm stoked to be on here as well because you're every bit as muscular and as strong, and the hair looks just as good as it did when we were working camp stuff together.
Thank you very much. Actually,
now, so you look great, man.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, gosh, we go back and it feels like a long time ago in the summer camp days, but I'm glad to know I still seem as youthful as I did back then.
Oh yeah, and for those who are watching, we should be interviewing Christo Pappademos one of these times. The work you did with the kids was fantastic, and a lot of the boys still talk about it. And I think you're still coaching football, right?
I'm not actually. That's a part of my former life now. Now I'm full time here at the church, but those were great days. Yeah. That was during my football coaching days and when I was at the camp with you guys.
Well, I feel honored to be on this. We've definitely started at the lowest level we possibly can. The good news is it can only get better from here, depending on who's next. As long as it's not like Father Nico Bacris or Chris Vertellis. Anybody else, be a real step up. These guys are amazing, obviously.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, no, I feel very blessed. I've been here on the West Coast for my entire ministry. I came out here after seminary, you're right, and was in San Francisco, and I've been in Scottsdale. Gosh, I'm going for 9 years.
Whoa.
Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy. Yeah. Yeah.
Finished up 6 years as a priest.
That's amazing.
So, yeah, I feel sorely blessed to be down here.
So that is interesting. Your entire ministry has been on the West Coast.
Yeah.
But you yourself, you are not a native West Coaster, are you? Quite the opposite, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right. And it goes to the question you had, and not Orthodox in how I grew up.
Oh yeah, let's start there. Yeah. We got a few big things.
I grew up in the greatest state in the Union, Virginia, and was born there and grew up in the Southeast. We lived there and then Tennessee for a little bit and then South Carolina.
Cool.
So yeah, my whole upbringing is down in the South, and the reason I would end up on the West Coast is there's a really great priest on the West Coast. His name is Father Metropolis.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a priest in Columbia, South Carolina when I was in school.
Oh, whoa, okay.
Yeah, so when I was junior, senior in college, I first heard of Orthodoxy for the first time in my life. I was 21 years old, and it knocked me over. I'd never heard anything so sophisticated or mysterious or beautiful in my life. Yeah, the professor who brought me in, actually, he's buried out here at a monastery in Safford, at a women's monastery.
So this was your professor at your, shall we call it your regular college? Obviously, this was not at Hellenic College, Holy Cross. What college were you attending, and what class was it that you had this professor?
I was at the University of South Carolina.
Oh, the USC, the
That's
original
it, yeah.
USC.
Yeah, thank you. So we were a school before California was a state. This is pretty simple stuff.
That is wild. Yeah.
He's brilliant. His name is James Cutzinger, kind of a Harvard undergrad, Harvard grad, brilliant guy.
Cool.
And I was a young man who was hardly behaving like a Christian, and I had never given up on the person of Jesus Christ, but we'd had a kind of a tough upbringing and gone through a lot, and so I felt like the definitions and the experiences that I'd had of Christianity in the West failed to be representative. I don't mean this in a judgmental way, but just
No,
in my experience. So it's anecdotal, I suppose, as well,
of
but
course.
of who God really is. And so when I'm in college, I take this class and I hear about Orthodoxy, and the rest is history.
Cool.
Yeah. And so yeah, so I'm with him for a semester. He tells me there's a priest nearby I should go see. His name is Father Eris Metrakos. We start a relationship, and then yeah, the rest
So
is.
are you in your catechumen phase? Are you just inquiring about Orthodoxy when you meet Father Eris?
Yeah, this is a great question, because I think probably every church across the country who is wise enough to be using a lot of English and focusing on outreach is seeing a lot of young people pouring into their church. That's the great dangerous thing about Orthodoxy, is the moment that people know just how potent and powerful a message it is, and once they can actually digest and hear the gospel in their tongue, it's infectious. Everybody wants to pursue this. And so I was like one of those young people. When I first met Father Eris, I was not yet a catechumen in any kind of formal sense.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, he and I met throughout my senior year, and I wasn't really formally a catechumen, though you could say I was an inquirer.
Mm-hmm.
I'd heard of a place called Mount Athos. And
Oh,
so I spoke no Greek. I really had never been too far from home, but had enough money to buy a ticket to Ireland,
oh, cool.
packed up everything I owned in a backpack, and then just disappeared in Europe and bounced my way across Europe until I ended up at this place called Mount Athos.
No way.
Wild, right?
That is.
Yeah. And so the experiences there were unbelievable.
Do you remember which monasteries you happened upon at that time?
It's really kind of cool. So it'd be probably too long to tell the story, but
Sure, sure.
I get to Thessaloniki. I wander into a place that looks like a church I'd never seen before. It turns out it's a place of the Church of Saint Demetrius in Thessaloniki.
Oh, yeah, sure.
The priest there can see I'm a Xeni who's fully lost, but he knows I'm looking for something, and he goes, "I think you're looking for Mount Athos."
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so he says, "Here's where the office is." I go to the office. A guy there says, "We have this opening tomorrow if you want to go." He's got his worry beads going.
Yeah,
And
sure.
on the phone, and sure. And so, like an Old Testament prophet, I leave the office and I'm like, great, I can go to Mount Athos, but I've got no idea how to get there. I don't speak Greek.
Yeah.
So I'm walking along kind of the waterfront there in Thess,
Yeah.
and I hear two English voices talking, and one of them is a guy named Philip Navarro. If that name sounds familiar, he was the editor for the book The Monk, the Guru, and the Young Man.
Oh, wow.
And he's talking to a priest from Cyprus, a Father Iosef. And this Father Iosef looks at me and goes, "You're trying to go to Mount Athos. Stay with us." I'm like, okay.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah. So he takes me in that evening to meet a guy by the name of Father Matthew. Father Matthew is in the book of the Mountain of Silence. If you ever heard of it?
Okay, yes.
And he says, "All right, we'll get you onto Mount Athos." So when I first get to Mount Athos, I go to a place called Vatopedi.
Dude, your first experience on Mount Athos is Vatopedi. That's crazy. I hear it's one of the more difficult monasteries to gain access to. It's one I'm hoping to visit myself one day. This is very cool. Okay.
It's wild. And the experiences there are, it's kind of like, not to make light of it, but it's like the movie The Matrix. When you go to see the Oracle, you have the experience that you need. I'm telling you, Nico Bacris is listening to this. Father Nico's going, yes, popular culture.
Totally.
But I did, and I think the Mother of God saw the infant that I was, and God was gentle with me. And so I actually had experiences with monks who knew my entire life story, knew my family by their name, knew histories, and yeah, I couldn't explain it.
Yeah.
And they, I end up going from there to Filotheo and Xenophondos, the Skeet of St. Anne.
Wow.
Yeah, and there's one abbot who I have kind of this miraculous experience with him, and he says, time to go home and be baptized.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I go home. Father Aris Petrakos baptized me in September of 2006.
Okay.
And then I do my interviews at the school in Boston a few months later.
Oh, wow.
And then I'm brought into the school. I think I've been Orthodox at that point, maybe 8 or 9 months when I start school.
Whoa, so you went the deep end. You went, let's go. You were all in on that, which is amazing to go from in a short window from University of South Carolina straight up to Brookline. Was that
That's
the
it.
progression?
I had a year in between to kind of get life organized and take off. But yeah,
That's quite a difference too, going from like a major university, big time college football, going to the Holy Hill, shall we say, which is a very unique place. And did you do 4 years there, Masters of Divinity program?
I did. I did 4 years there, and it was a neat experience. The first time I ever walked into an Orthodox church, I was in South Carolina. That was Father Aris's church, Holy Trinity downtown.
Oh, so okay, cool.
Yeah, and I went thinking like, what's this Orthodoxy thing all about? These weird people who have censers and icons, and
Yeah.
I went with a healthy sense of skepticism. And at the end of the service, Father Aris Metrakos comes out and says, typically I offer a homily at this point. We actually have a guest speaker who will be talking to us about his journey to Orthodoxy and about why he became Orthodox. This is Mr. Barnabas Powell.
Oh,
And
it's Mr. Barnabas Powell at this
at that
time.
point, and
Okay.
then, I'm listening to this incredible homily from what now is Father Barnabas Powell. And the next time I'll see Father Barnabas, my first day at the school is his first day at the school.
Oh, wow, you guys were classmates. Look at
We're
that.
classmates. So we met there, and yeah, it was pretty neat.
Very cool. Okay, so now you're first year at Holy Cross, and what are some of your first impressions? What are the experiences like for you? As you said, you'd been Orthodox for 8 or 9 months at this point.
Yeah, yeah.
So what were kind of your first impressions? I assume you were living in Polmonakos like many of us did. Yeah, what were your impressions of kind of like the daily worship cycle at the school, the classes, any professors that stood out to you?
Yeah, the professors were incredible. I don't think it'll scandalize anybody to say it, but at the time, and it makes sense. It's not like a professor would fail a person when they're going to seminary. And I don't mean to. It's an accredited university. It's fantastic. But
Mhm.
I mean, how do you take somebody who a bishop has said this person feels called to be a priest, and I feel like he is, and then somehow fail him on academic reasons? So
Yeah.
I think where everybody shows up and tries, they're quick to go, okay, here's the areas you probably need to work on as you go on in your ministry. But yeah, but that said, the if people want to dive deeper and they want to go into the more difficult stuff, the syllabi the professors provide, you could go study anywhere in the world and take that stuff with you and get a master's. And so
Yeah.
you were exposed to these professors who were really pastoral, at least in my time there, but who had a lot of wisdom and could have taught anywhere they wanted to. Dr. Dimitri Katos, by the way, who oxios to him for the new role that he's in.
That's right. New president.
Yeah, I was blessed to have him. He taught petrology, and he properly
Oh,
he terrified all of us.
really? How
Uh,
interesting. How so?
he's brilliant, and he held us to a high standard,
Ah,
and it was great. And he's an exceptional human being and a really spiritual man and really humorous and kind. And he was great. Dr. Tim Petitsis, I didn't even have words for how much I love him. I can't tell you how often I'd go up to his office to talk to him because I was class president at the school for a while.
oh, cool.
I would be talking to him, and after about 10 minutes, in his typical way, he'd go, all right, get out of here. I've got things to do,
Yeah,
uh,
totally talked to him. Yeah.
Father Phil Zamaris,
Yeah.
extraordinary for me because remember, I'm a person who's just come into the faith. And he was the person who kept harping on, using Schmemann and Zazulus and Meyendorf. And he would always come back to the person of Jesus Christ and would drill that down and say, these aren't performances. This is prayer.
Yes.
And that was really helpful for a new guy like me. Father Ted Stylianopoulos was incredible.
Was he a professor when you were there? He had retired by the
New
time I'd gotten there. What was he? What was?
Testament.
Oh, he's New Testament. Look at that. Wow.
Yeah, and he was just he was incredible. I remember his very first lecture. He talked about how deep what Christ does on the cross and how deep it actually goes. And I remember I had tears in my eyes. He just told us for the first
Oh.
class, he's like, in his typical way with his voice.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's totally it.
yeah, right. He gave us, he talked to us, and I remember he just said, "Put your pencils down. I just want to talk about who Christ is and how he's articulated kind of in the cross." I remember I had tears in my eyes. I'm like,
That's
"This is the most incredible thing I'd ever heard in my life."
that's
So
amazing. And those are the things you remember, those kind of those real conversations, pencils down. And just it's almost not like that original form of sermon, Christ teaching on the mountain, just sitting and people sitting and listening to him as he's changing their lives right before them. That's very cool.
I should also point out, because I'm in his debt and actually owe this to him. None of this is possible if not for Father Nick Triantafilo.
Ah, yes, of course. The
Those,
president.
yeah, for those who don't know him, and he was and remains, he's a giant. And
Yeah.
a lot of us refer to him as the in our class as the warrior poet.
Ah,
The man's tough as nails. He cut his teeth in Texas, but he's from New England as a football player.
yeah.
His compassion for persons struggling with, say, special needs or different things, his love of the fathers. Father Nick was just an absolute giant, and yeah, I'm sorely indebted to him.
You
Uh,
know, you know what I loved about him. He's a giant, as you said, he was larger than life, and we'd all heard about him. We'd all heard about him. His last year at the seminary was my first year, and he had not done the Holy Week seminar for a while, but he had, rallied himself. He had health issues, and it was a big deal that he was going to be leading the Holy Week seminar, the main priest celebrating all the
he did
services.
it for you guys.
He did it for us.
Oh,
Was he
great.
doing it when you were there, or was he maybe he still had some health issues and wasn't doing it when you were
He
there?
did it, and we were also blessed to have Father Chamberis, who was there.
Yes, the dynamic
Yes.
duo.
Oh my gosh, yeah, incredible.
It was really cool to watch them together. And, so we were all kind of intimidated by Father Nick, even though he's one of the nicest,
Great.
loving people you'll ever meet. Still an intimidating guy.
He
He's a
is. He's got
football
those
guy.
big shoulders. Yeah,
He's
exactly.
huge, and
He's
he's
a
got
big
the
man.
gruff,
He's got the
gruff
boots on.
voice. Yeah, the boots, and he's got the cowboy boots on in the altar. And so it was one of the first services, I don't know, maybe Holy Monday or Tuesday. And we were in the altar group serving with him, and we're all kind of walking around on pins and needles. And so it was like either during one of the times where the chanters have many hymns to sing, or one of the prophecies, and Father Nick steps aside from the altar table, and he calls me over to him. I'm like, oh geez. And he pulls me to come back in the sacristy with him. And I'm thinking, what could he possibly, am I going to get in trouble? Is there something I'm doing wrong?
Sure.
And he goes, so it was 4th and 1 on the goal line. And he starts telling me this football story. And like that was one of the most amazing, because he's fully present in prayer during the services, but for him to still want to connect to these brand new seminarians in his last year and share like football stories, I'll always remember that. Whenever you think things are too serious, or
No, you're not wrong at all. I remember
yeah,
once he's giving a homily in the chapel. It's on a Sunday, and it's packed. There were bishops there and everything, which is, if anybody's not been to the school, that's typical when you're there.
yeah,
And one of our classmates, her little boy had to be maybe 2.
okay.
She's in the back, and he just sprints up the middle aisle.
Oh, the boy. I thought, yeah.
Yeah, and so Father Nick's giving this homily, and this little 2-year-old comes running up this little boy, and you felt bad. The mom's like panicked and is reaching out.
Oh, yeah.
And Father Nick, in his usual way, goes, "It's okay, it's okay," And he tells the boys, like, "You're fine." And this little boy, it's true, sits at his feet, and Father Nick kind of touches him on top of the head, and then
Yeah.
continues his homily.
Look at that.
Talked for another 3 or 4 minutes with this little boy, literally just sitting at his feet and kind of playing with his garments.
Yeah.
And then at the end, Father Nick, finishes the sermon, and the mom gets the kid back, and it was to your point, it was him, always like so present, always like forever a pastor.
Yeah.
He was great. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm glad we got to I'm glad we both got to,
You had
benefit.
Father Eugene Pentioke as well.
I did. He was my Old Testament professor. Yeah. And he would do services in the chapel all the time. Yeah.
A genius, and a riot, and makes learning really fun. That guy, he's on a different level academically. Yeah.
He is, and that's one of the mind-blowing things too about being there is like, how are all of these professors so smart, but it's so drastically different from it's very interesting. But so those were some of the highlights of the seminary, and of course, like,
And I'd
yeah.
have to add, because I know
Oh
you,
yeah.
Father Tom Fitzgerald, who
Oh,
was
Father
dean.
Tom.
He was my spiritual father when I was up there, and
That's awesome.
I mean, he was great. Such a pastoral man, brilliant. Yeah,
And a
that's
wealth of
later.
knowledge. Yeah.
You probably meant a much shorter response for this, but when you asked about the school, my experience really was the professors were incredible.
You
Uh,
connected with them clearly. Yeah.
yeah, and my classmates were incredible, and even the guys right behind me. Right behind me were Steve Christoforou and a bunch of those
Oh,
guys.
wow.
Father Bosnos and others. They're just incredibly good men. And then classmates with Father Dimitri Kazakis and Father John Resmini, and we were just spoiled, like surrounded by so many good people. Yeah.
Definitely. Definitely. That's awesome, man. So what were some of the challenges maybe though of the seminary? One of or some of the things you did not anticipate being as difficult as they were. You know, all challenges can be good things when you work through them, but I know the seminary has a variety of things that people maybe don't expect or are unaware of. So what were some of those for you?
Yeah, I mean, the simple one you'll say is the balance of academics and the chapel life.
Totally. It's a lot. Yeah.
It is a lot, and I admired some of the great guys who were there who could do both and do it all the time.
Yeah.
Um, I did not always succeed in that area. Um, I think I think I don't think I'm mistranslating. I think Polymenakos means place of war, and I think
Oh my, yeah.
when you go up to the place, you really you have to struggle with yourself, and um, you end up having to confront yourself. You have to begin developing this life of service, and for especially for someone like me, I'd only just become Orthodox 8 months before.
Yeah.
I think so much of what you're dealing with is it takes years to kind of you enter that baptismal water, and for it to continue to take effect in your life and to grow and to heal, and it's a process.
Yeah.
And so all that is happening for me at the same time as I'm entering the school and going through the program there. And I don't know. I think in all, I just felt very spoiled by the persons who were there, a lot of our classmates, by the professors that were there. Um, BTI was another brilliant thing. BTI is
Did you take advantage of that? That was
yeah,
one thing. Yeah. So the BTI,
Harvard and Boston College. And oh yeah, please you can explain
give
it.
us, no, I was gonna, you can probably do a better job having, actually taken advantage of it and done what you were supposed to with this awesome opportunity that I let just blow right past me. Explain for the viewers what the BTI is and what opportunities you have through it.
Yeah, the Boston Theological Institute uh, is basically the theological programs of like all kinds, like maybe a dozen universities, maybe more,
Oh,
allow you to take classes at any other school in their theological school, which afforded us the opportunity. You know, you'll have students coming from Harvard, Boston University, Boston College. I forget the name of the one up in Massachusetts on the shore there. But a lot of people will take advantage of taking classes at the school, and so we can take classes there. And so that was neat to take classes, say at Harvard. And there was
did you do that? Did you take a class at Harvard?
I did. I was there. I was
Amazing.
who taught historical Jesus, which is an interesting take. Obviously, we think that it falls well short, and there's a whole host of things. But it's interesting to hear these different perspectives, and how do you begin to engage these different schools of thought, and how do you learn their language so you can share orthodoxy?
Totally.
It was neat taking a class with at Boston College with a bunch of Jesuits. That was a really cool experience.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah, it's a really enriching program. And if you're there and you have the chance to do it, I recommend it.
Very cool. Very cool.
The hardest part for me was chanting.
Oh man,
I'm
that's right. Chant.
I'm-
Yeah. Everything at the school can be like the only thing you study at the school, right? Like there's so much, like you could go there and only study New Testament. You could go there and chant was definitely one of those things where it's an entire world, right? And everyone's used to Byzantine chant or style of music from the church that they're from, and you get to the school and you learn it from A to B. You learn all the notes, the neumes, the ni pa vus. You learn it all. And so what were you have a good voice, obviously, but so what for you? What was the challenge of chant? Was it just like kind of scientific? That's what kind of threw it for me. It was like it is actually very scientific when you start talking about microtones and things like that. But so what was it for you that was challenging?
No, you're not wrong. I was cross-eyed the first day. I didn't know.
Yeah,
I couldn't read Greek and I couldn't read Byzantine chant. So all I saw was
yeah,
marks on
jeez.
the page, and it looked like a Rorschach test. I'm like, I can't tell what I'm looking at here. What's worse is I'm an American from the South, which means English is a second language for me. Like the ability to speak well, it was difficult, and I was very blessed. Rossum,
Oh, awesome, awesome. Yeah.
my father Rossum was
Oh,
there.
he's father now. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but he was there, so he was a great help to us.
He was really amazing. I don't think he was he was a professor when I was there because I had him for prosomia, but he would, of course, every Thursday he'd be in charge of the chant stand and just blow the roof out. It was beautiful. Yeah.
We had a guy named Ketzaziz was our teacher.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and
This was around when you were there. Okay.
so and he was patient with us because
Cool.
I think what his gift was, and there's something to say about it. If you were a decent chanter, pretty good, he could make you exceptional.
Oh, wow.
I think understandably, it was difficult for him to have, to have someone like me come out totally from the outside.
Wow.
But nevertheless, as much as we all have stories and everybody jokes, he was really kind and patient with us. Yeah.
Cool.
So, yeah.
That's awesome.
And we were there with Father Dan Horst, who's now Bishop Andre.
Oh, wow.
Guys as well. We were spoiled. It was just a bunch of giants in those classes. Yeah.
That's very cool. That's very cool. So you're at the school for 4 years, living the Boston life. And then I'm excited to get into this next chapter of your life, ministry, whatever you want to call it. Because a lot of people I noticed when I was at the school, they were kind of like, everybody has their own life path. So I don't want to say they were rushing through, but a lot of guys would come in and want to do it in 3 years, or a lot of guys would come in and want to be ordained by the 4 and then be out and be an ordained priest. But you did something not very common. You kind of crushed it as a pastoral assistant in your bio, I was trying to calculate was it about 10 years that you did the pastoral assistant life?
Yeah. See, I started in 2011. Like as soon as I was done, I graduated, and I was youth director in that kind of role. Yeah, for Holy Trinity for 4 years in San Francisco.
Cool.
And then for 2 more years here, and then was ordained to the priesthood. So you're right; it's about 6 years of youth director, camping ministry, assisting in the parish. Yeah.
And I think that's awesome because a lot of people kind of look at the pastoral assistant role. Maybe I'm biased. I've been a pastoral assistant for about 5 years here. But I remember even at the school and after, people are like, what is a pastoral assistant? Why would you ever want to do that? And I believe it is whatever you want to make it, is what a pastoral assistant is. And I feel like you made it probably one of the coolest things you can make it. Actually, when I was at the seminary and I was coming towards the end, I realized I was probably going the pastoral assistant route, and I was totally cool with it because you kind of paved the way for people to like not only be pastoral assistants and just be in this kind of waiting game, but to do like effective ministry and active work in this role. So why don't you tell us how kind of the end of the seminary shook down for you, and how you came to San Francisco for work afterwards?
Yeah, yeah. So the shortest version of it is that Father Aris Metrakos, who was in Colombia, ends up taking a parish in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And after I graduate, he calls me up and says, "Hey, I need a youth director. Do you want to come out?"
Look at that! Bada bing, bada boom. That's actually that's pretty sweet.
And I'm actually indebted to his son, Stefan Metrakos, because Stefan was the one who said to his dad, "Hey, we should bring Jacob out here."
Cool.
Father Aris goes, "That's not a bad idea." And so, for better or worse, Father Aris had to endure me for 4 years. And I think one of the things that helped me was growing up Protestant. I remember apples to apples as far as size of parishes. My dad had worked for a while at a Methodist church that was about the same size as the Holy Trinity in San Francisco.
Okay.
And I remember learning that, like a lot of parishes in the GOA, Holy Trinity, I think we had 4 full-time staff, something like that. My dad's parish, that Protestant community about the same size, had 23 full-time staff.
Whoa.
And so
Office admin,
this
different
admin,
directors of ministry.
outreach people, ministry people, youth people, senior people, a whole host of people. And so that kind of helped inform my thinking a lot, which was there's a lot of work that needs to be done in a parish to help organize the life and the
Yeah.
outreach. And I feel so bad because very often a lot of stuff that we bog the priests down with, I don't mean that negatively, but we bog them down with so many things. They're not actually able to be priests. They're not actually
Totally.
teaching and preaching and seeing people in hospitals. They're doing a lot of administrative work. And I think
Totally.
part of the reason you've seen Protestants explode, at least on a ministry level, is they take all of that almost away from their pastors. And so what do their pastors do? They write books. They become therapists.
Oh.
And that's why they're able to do so many of these different things. We as Orthodox tend to go, well, he needs to make sure that this carpet's being installed correctly. Who's going to check this budget? And the
The
Protestant,
plumber's coming down on Tuesday.
the Protestants are like, this is a waste of this person's time. This is not what we got sent this person to do. And so when I went to Holy Trinity, Father Eris is a guy that should be interviewed by a lot of people because organizationally he's really brilliant.
Military man, right?
That's it. Yeah, top of his class, Naval Academy, speaks several languages fluently. He's like twice over a black belt. The guy can fly.
Oh, whoa.
He's amazing. But I remember when I got there, he said, "I'm going to call you a youth director and nothing else." And he said, "Because if I put any other title besides your name, that's where you're going to spend most of your time.
Right. Everything else will get
Well,
saddled.
a youth director, we can say that's not in his purview." And basically, he said to me two great pieces of advice. I don't even know if he remembers that he said it to me, but he said, "I said, how do I do this?" And he goes, "Every single day you'll come into the church and you'll pray." And he goes, "Have a list of all the youth by their names and talk to God." And he goes, "That's your first priority. So you come in, you'll talk to God, you'll pray for them, and then you'll go about your work. Because at the very end of the day, at least these families are being prayed for." I was like, wow. So I would do that. I would try to get there, go up to the altar, get on my knees and just pray.
Cool.
And then the other thing he said was, which I think was great, is he said, "I need you to show me 999 ways not to make a light bulb." And he talked about Thomas Edison, different stories depending. Essentially, 1,000 times tries to make a light bulb. So yeah, he keeps messing it up. It's not until that 1,001 or 1,000th that he finally gets it right. And so people mistakenly think he failed those 990 times before, but it's actually not true. Failing on those different ways, it shows you what works. And so he goes, "I need you to show me all the ways that this doesn't work and the ways that it does work."
Oh.
So it allowed us to try a whole host of different things with youth ministry. It's kind of where we developed using Tim Petit's his thesis on liturgy in the city. Here's how you do youth ministry and young adult ministry, and it worked. I mean, that'd be maybe a whole different podcast.
Sure. Yeah. No, definitely.
That helped a lot. That's we did a lot of youth ministry and got to be involved with the camps. Thank you, of course, to His Eminence Metropolitan Gerasimos for allowing me to step into that role. But
those are good years at that camp too. I can
great.
That. Those are
great years. So yeah, we did that, and then so that was great. So, but I never felt like, "Oh, I've got to rush to get ordained," because my thought was, well, all of San Francisco isn't Orthodox yet, so we still have work to do. And so it wasn't like there was a lack of work. So just kept working, and I figured that when the time was right, God would see fit to put me in a place to have me ordained and move on. So
that's amazing, right? Because that's full-time work, validating work, like blessed work that you were doing completely in that role. And knowing that the next step would always be there probably allowed you to just hunker down and get everything you could out of that work, which probably, set you up for this phase, if not later in your ministry. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
And to your point, I think what's going to make you such a good priest, because now I'm going to make this about you, is I used to admire the guys who had been like in the military NCOs.
Yeah.
Then went to officer candidate school and then became officers.
Oh.
It's not to take away from officers at all, but the guys who were NCOs had been, it's like going to the company and you work in the mailroom and work your way up.
Ground up.
Because of that, they have such an intimate knowledge of how the machine works. And
Totally.
I'm not trying to say that's what the church is, but like it gives you a unique perspective to know from the ground up what it's like to sit in those youth meetings and to go through all that difficulty and wonder what in the world I'm doing and to fail here and to work your way and then to step into the role of a priest. And
Having seen everything, yeah,
I
before.
really count it as an advantage. That's why you're going to be just like your dad. You're going to be an exceptional priest.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that, Father. That's very kind of you to say. And speaking of, you touched a little bit on the military thing, but you are also a football guy yourself, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you are. I think
Good quarterback, defensive end. And I was so good, you could almost call me decent.
QB DN, that's a really cool combo. Usually it's like QB safety, but quarterback and DN, that's wild.
Was when we grew up in the Valley of Virginia and small town, small school. And so they're like, you're tall and lanky. I need you to run at the end here. Yeah, I can do that. Just pin your ears back and go.
That's it.
I loved it. Love football. Football's great.
Cool, man. What lessons or kind of what parallels maybe do you see from like a football or maybe any athletic life or experience to the spiritual life or even to the ministerial life?
Everything, and it's not. Don't blame one day Father Christo Pappademos and the unworthy Father Jacob for making this metaphor, because Paul does it too with wrestling and track and being athletes.
Totally.
Before I went to South Carolina, I went to the Virginia Military Institute.
BMI, right?
Yeah, and I my family history on my mom's side is all police, FBI. My dad's side is also Purple Hearts and everything else. We got pictures even back in the Civil War of my dad's family on their horses with the sabers on their shoulders.
No way, that's wild. Okay.
Even when I was on Athos, I remember talking to a monk, and I didn't tell him anything about my past. But he said to me, he said in one of those miraculous moments, he's like, Jacob, you were called to be a soldier, but different than you think it's going to be. This will be a different war. And so I think when it comes to things like athletics, especially something like football, where there's pain and sacrifice and military stuff, everything about the ascetical life in the Orthodox world makes sense in that space.
Yes.
And I mean, anybody can listen to anybody you hear talks from guys who are former Navy SEALs about not quitting, not ringing that bell, things like that. Man, that's the Orthodox faith. That's our ascetical struggle. I even remember we had my master sergeant when we were going through training at VMI, and I was there for about a year and a half. My mom got cancer.
Oh.
And that's how I ended up at South Carolina.
Wow.
But my master sergeant used to yell at us, "Stay alert." We all had to yell back, "Stay alive." And I think you were there at summer camp when I talked about this.
Yeah.
And so stay alert, stay alive, stay alert, stay alive. And I remember the next time I actually heard that phrase was I was in an Orthodox service and I heard a deacon yell, "Be attentive."
Oh.
I remember my mind just like went straight back and I was like, whatever they're telling me, this is life-saving information. Stay alert, stay alive. And so all these different, there's so many little different metaphors.
That's very cool. Be attentive right before the gospel, right?
Yeah.
Right before you hear the words that will save your life if you listen to them. Yeah.
Even with the creed, you'll hear that as well. Yeah, these are like, this is powerful statements. Like, wisdom, let us be attentive. Like, you're like, oh, man, this is great. It's countless. I mean, the metaphors both for sports life and for military life. Paul says, "Be a good soldier and don't be distracted." So it's good stuff. Yeah.
Cool, man. Very cool. So now so after the seminary, you were at Holy Trinity here in San Francisco with Father Eris for 4 years, you said, I believe.
Yeah, about four and a half. Yeah, something like that.
4.5 years. And obviously now you are in Scottsdale, Arizona. So how did the next kind of not bump up, but how did the next step in your life and your ministry play out?
That was exciting. So they have Scottsdale is it's a ton of youth and young adults, like big
Scottsdale.
Area. Cool. Phoenix is exploding.
Is there a college in Scottsdale? Is that like ASU or University of Arizona is one of them there?
Right. So it's almost like Scottsdale to Phoenix is almost like saying like Brooklyn to Manhattan. Like it's just like they all bleed into each other. It's all one big conglomerate kind of thing. So yeah, ASU is here, GCU is here. Some of the graduate programs for University of Arizona is here. There's like dental, optometry school, stuff like that.
Cool.
But a ton of young people. And so that was fun to go from San Francisco where you didn't have that many young people and we were able to do a lot. Everybody's kind of moving out from the suburbs.
Yeah, very, yeah, it's like
Yeah.
post-college people, first job, they find a new job and leave, and
Super transient, and it's all commuter parish. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas here, you're basically dropped in just like tons of youth. And so it was kind of exciting to come here and take the programs that we've done in San Francisco. And going back to your metaphor, you go, okay, we had really great tactics and bullets and camouflage. We're going to a different battlefront. So we know how to fight. We just have to change some of those tactics and camouflage and everything else. And we did that. We repackaged it here, and the same thing happened. It just exploded. The church down here was already incredible. I think their Sunday school, even when I first got here, I think 150 kids on the Sunday school.
Wow.
Yeah, so Scottsdale, I was shocked. I was like, oh my gracious. And there was just one priest, Father Andrew Barakos, who was doing all of this. And I'm like, holy moly. And
that is insane.
so I was able to jump in, get involved, and start doing young adult ministry down here. And there's a local camp. And it's when I moved down here that I also start dating, after only having been here a short time, my future wife.
Yes.
Jordan Normoyle of the Palios Cretan clan up in Modesto, California, whose priest is Father John Magulius.
Yeah.
Who is, talk about a giant of a man. That's kind of her parish. That's where she grew up, like so many other Presvyteras.
Yeah, really. It's kind of
There's a
like,
lot of them that are out there.
it's like
Yeah.
a powerhouse. It's like the SCC of like,
You're not wrong.
yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, she and I had done camp for several years, thought the world of her. And we ended up dating, getting engaged and married within the first year and a half of being down here. And shortly after that, His Eminence Gerasimos says, okay, time to ordain you.
Cool, man.
That's it. So I was ordained in February of 2018. And that's it.
Cool. Very cool. And so I remember, obviously, when you were here in San Francisco, you were the program director for our Metropolis summer camp every year, the years that when I would come back and serve from the seminary. You also did Ionian Village, I believe, back in the day with perhaps Father Christo Pappademos, I think Father Jason Roll, or was this before Father Jason Roll?
No, you're right. It was Father Jason Roll's first year, and he tag teamed it with Father Mark Leonidas, another person to whom I'm in extraordinary debt, both of those persons. Father Mark is now in Boca, and the two of those guys crushed it. Having those two guys in IV was just a riot.
Yeah, and I think and each one of you, or many of the counselors that were there under those two, you went out and you led other camping programs, and I think you based a lot of what you did at your camps with what they laid out, which is
the person there who helped a lot is Mike Rombato, Drew Baker.
Oh,
yeah, Drew's there at the same time, and so Drew's really the one. He was our program director, and so Drew, I think, sorry, Crombato, I think I'm getting this right. He's got a PhD in the psychology of education. He's really good at what he does, and so if anybody's worked with him before in the Archdiocese, he's just incredible.
Yeah, he is. Actually, I had like a situation recently about a year ago at my parish. Nothing, out of the ordinary, but we all have challenges and kind of like problems to untangle. And someone, I think maybe Father Christo Pappademos suggested, he said, why don't you give Drew Baker a call? And he explained this kind of puzzle that I had in front of me. He was in 10 minutes, he was like, bang, 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 and had like the whole puzzle, solved. And I was able to take the advice he gave me, the very next week, and we were able to implement some improvements. And it's crazy. Like the people that have studied specific areas and like how knowledgeable they are. It's always very good to like go to the people who know things, and he knows a lot of things. So
you're right, and that speaks to what you were talking about a little bit earlier, like the important role of lay people.
Yes.
The laus to Theo, they're just like the clergy. We're all the laus to Theo, but like these people have specialties and strengths that you can't be an expert at everything. And I think, leaning on these people and putting them more and more in leadership roles, men and women with all these different backgrounds, we need them sorely. It takes all of us to do it. Yeah,
definitely. And it's always best when those pieces are working together. So now you're in ordained ministry down there in Scottsdale, Arizona. You worked an extensive amount of time on the lay side, and you had a lot of exciting with summer camp and the youth work. You had a lot of exciting experiences on that side, I'm sure. But what are some of the kind of the most enjoyable or the highlights of ordained ministry for you?
The ordained ministry is altogether humbling, altogether humbling. Being like allowed to serve people and being allowed to be with people in the most like vulnerable and intimate parts of their lives
Yeah.
is is terribly humbling and the most rewarding thing in the world. And it's amazing because I think so much of being like a presbyter, an elder, is the kind of the prayer you say before baptism is humbly being allowed to declare the release of other people, to heal them of things, to set them right, to actually lift up their gaze to heaven and to tell them that they're better than the sins and the struggles of their past. To be able to do that is the most rewarding thing in the world. And yeah, there's something about, because I always speak to myself, totally unworthy. I remember my letter, when I wrote my letter, you know, if anybody's listening and is considering being a priest, you write a letter to your bishop about why you want to be ordained. And
that's actually interesting. I knew there was a letter involved. I didn't know I didn't know you literally write out why you want to be ordained. That's pretty interesting. Okay.
and I've actually still got it on my computer. And all I wrote to my Metropolitan was all the reasons that he should not ordain me. I said, and it basically pointed out to him, I'm not exceptional. I'm not worthy. And you go through all of this, but then at the very end you do go, but I do feel called to the work, and I give myself entirely to you and to the church, to whatever you think is best. And I remember one person said, "You're too hard on yourself." But my spiritual father is just a wonderful man. He's a bishop. It's Father Yakovos. He was in Montreal for a while. People know him as Father Dimitri beforehand, Antonopoulos.
Cool.
And he read it, and he's a monk. And he read it, and he got back to me. He was smiling. He goes, "It's perfect." He goes, "This is exactly what a person should say when it's time to be ordained. Don't ordain.
Nice.
I'm not worthy."
Yeah, not me. Yeah.
And, so you feel that way, and I've got a good Father Andrew Barakos is a giant of a priest as well, and he's always quick to be like, "That's great. Never forget that. Never forget." You know, and so you feel very honored to be able to pray for people. To be this representative of Christ and His church, unworthy as we are, and to help lift people up. It's extraordinary. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So obviously you're a very busy guy. I remember last year at Metropolis Clergy Lady, most of us, we get there, we drop our bags down, we're ready to just kind of like relax after the trip. And man, you had your laptop out. Obviously the Scottsdale parish is thriving, it has a lot of things going on, so you're very busy as a result, so you're working away. But when you're not,
don't let him fool you. If you're watching this or you're listening, this man is so busy. What he's doing at that parish at a cathedral, you're a machine yourself. You're amazing.
Thanks, man. We're just trying out here. We're just trying. But so when you're not at the church, or when you're not not working, because it's not work in the traditional sense, but in your downtime, how are you enjoying your days, and what are some of your hobbies that maybe people might not think that priests do, but clearly priests are normal people just like everybody else. I mean, to some extent, but
well, yeah.
So how are you?
That's our theology, even like we're all priests.
Yes. Yes.
The job of a priest, and technically just a presbyter, an elder. I mean, the job of us is to have no other vocation but that vocation. So we're all priests in that sense.
Right.
Yeah. No. I could say surfing because I love to surf. I grew up.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Love to surf. When I lived in the Bay Area, I love surfing. Every year I go to Project Mexico, and so we steal a surfboard down there and we go hit the water. That's fun.
That's amazing. Wait, so you surfed, because the water up here is cold. I've done it a couple of times in San Diego. Did you just learn to surf while you're in San Francisco? Is that something people from the South do, or?
Yeah, I surf, but we lived in South Carolina from middle school.
Beaches.
Yeah, every day.
It's funny. Like I tried tons of times to surf. I have a lot of friends from San Diego. It's probably one of the most frustrating processes.
It is.
Eating it time after time. And you think like, oh, it's the water, so it's not painful like falling off a skateboard. It's still very painful. You gotta look out for stingrays and stuff like that too. But man, when you finally catch a wave, it's like then I got it. It's like this weightless feeling. It's like there's probably some spiritual metaphor to use here too, but like I just remember catching the wave before eating it again. But yeah, it was all worth it. Yeah.
But living in Arizona, not much surfing. So
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
I
Not at
really
all.
I enjoy reading. I actually, believe it or not, ever since becoming Orthodox, I really developed a love for language, and I still stink at so many languages, but I love reading them and studying them. 'Cause
Cool.
even if
That
I
is
can't
cool.
speak it, I love being able to grab language from, you know, in texts like the Antecedon, Syriac, that Middle Aramaic, like
Wow.
Anglified, like some of the Greek and the Koine, the common language of that first century. I like that. I can't speak it at all, but I love reading and looking into it. But
That's really cool.
my favorite thing is my sons.
Yeah.
It's a conversation about path to priesthood, but what I can say is if anybody's considering being a priest, which is why I'm sure teens of people will listen to this interview, literally teens, is
If we're lucky. Yeah.
you do have time for your children. And I think I know there's a generational divide because I know there was a period old school when there was the expectation of a priest, like, no, you're here all the time. But to the great credit of the lay and to the clergy who've gone before us, they've really looked back over their shoulder, and instead of pulling the ladder behind them, they've said, hey, don't make the same mistakes we did. Pour
Yeah.
yourself into your children. And if you have to say to them, I can't make this meeting, I can't go to this, my kid's got a t-ball game, and that's exactly what you do. And some of these great dads that I see who have been great dads, like yourself and others, yeah, there's a sacrifice because the time is there. But I think all their children fully appreciate it. The dad at times would be like, no, I'm not Jesus Christ. I can't save anybody. My
Yeah.
kid, the only people to whom I can't be replaced are my children and my wife. And so my
Sure.
absolute favorite place to be in the world is with my kids. And I can't, Christo, when you're a dad, you're going to be amazing at this. Going home to wrestle with, I've got two little boys, Jack and Benjamin. Jack's 4.5, and Benjamin just turned 3 this month.
Oh, wow.
It's heaven. There's
That's
not a,
awesome.
there's not a greater thing on earth. And I'm sure every priest here who didn't mention it would. He's like, oh yeah, it's I can't imagine a greater witness to a community than at least trying to be a really good dad. I didn't
That's
think
awesome,
I
man.
didn't think I'd be so blessed. That's my favorite thing in the world.
Good for you. Good for you. That's
Dude, you're gonna be such a good dad too. I can't wait for kids.
thanks, man. Yeah, it is fun times ahead. Are you gonna let them play football? Have you thought about that?
Oh, yeah.
Here we go. Not
Oh,
even
100%. I was telling my wife, and she goes, "Can you at least, if our son keeps putting his head down when he tackles?" I'm like, "Yes, I'll pull him out
Yep.
with a different sport." But I was like, "But if he knows how to handle his body, we're gonna let him play."
There you
Uh,
go.
and it's a typical fashion. If anybody who's a parent can appreciate is listening to this. My older son is insightful, tenderhearted, smart. He's built like an athlete,
There you
but
go.
but he's the sweeter guy. He's just fantastic.
Yeah, the
My
killer.
other son is half of his size, and it doesn't have this big build like an athlete, but he's an absolute pit bull and a maniac. He'll
That's
just
hilarious.
jump off things, and I'm like, okay, this is the kid I could,
Yeah, there's a linebacker. There's a yeah.
exactly. So yeah, it's heaven.
That's awesome, man. Father Jacob, thank you so much for sharing about your journey, about your life. I think any young man that listens to this will be encouraged to pursue any calling he might be feeling at the moment. And then, if not, someone listening to go to the seminary. I think everybody is spiritually kind of inspired by your story and what you have to share and the way you deliver it in such a relatable way. So it's been a real pleasure for me to have you on, Father.
Well, you've done it. You wasted an hour by hanging out with me. Um, and I know, and that's a great point because you're a great interviewer as well. And this has been fun because for those who don't know, there's a reason that all these priests are doing the interviews because Christo's a wonderful guy. And don't you edit this out, by the way. He's a really great guy. All of us love him. And but you're right. I hope if this does anything, you're right. Being a priest is terrifying. None of us are worthy of it. But and I don't think I'm misquoting. I think it's on the priesthood where Chrysostom lists off all the reasons why you shouldn't be a priest. No one's worthy, and he's right.
Yeah.
I remember there's a section there. He goes, but if you really do feel called to do the work, and you're not doing it because of the post or the dignity of the post,
Yeah.
then you have to do it. If you feel
Right.
called, I would just say, God provides, and He's gentle, and God's good, man. If you're willing to follow Him, even through your mistakes, He's generous, and so yeah, I've been very blessed not only to found this faith, but be an unworthy presbyter.